work.
Is that a mute or is that to allow
It
remote
says press the red button to mute or unmute the attendee in
on the
remote
queue?
Oh,
This is the
remote queue.
Miteco one.
Either way, I don't care.
And let's see what time do we have. This time we start. Yeah, very small meeting.
Hold on, slides. And I don't have slides right
We
now.
have Jabber scribes. Do we have a minute taker and a Jabber scribe? Sign in, please. Would anyone please volunteer to take minutes? Okay, we have a minute taker. We have a minute taker.
Slides.
Do you really mean Jabber scribe? Okay. Congratulations to the Jabber scribe. Well, shall we start?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, you have slides. Well,
The slides ready. Our slides are there.
well, there are the, we have to show the note well first. Okay. Yes, we can. Yes. Welcome all to Lime. And as soon as Greg Mirsky sits down, we'll begin the meeting. Yay, okay. And everyone else, have a seat. This is the Lime Working Group. If you're here for something else, please continue to read email. We're friendly, we don't bite. This is the note well that you see before every IETF meeting. Please note it well and be cognizant of our IPR policy. This is Carlos Piñataro. I'm Ron Bonica, we're the chairs. And let's talk a little bit about, let's see, we now have Jabber scribes, we now have a scribe, we have blue sheets circulating, so we can go past this onto our status. The working group has 4 documents bouncing around. 2 of them are actually very key to our charter. There are 2 Yang models, one for connection-oriented and one for connection-less OAM. And the other are applicability statements, one for connection-oriented, one for connection-less. For those of you who've been monitoring, by the way, raise your hand if you're monitoring the mailing list. Almost everyone in the room, excellent. Raise your hand if you've posted to the mailing list since the last IETF. And Adrian is scratching his head. Yeah, the volume on the mailing list has been exceptionally low. We've had a couple first drafts, and I appreciate that for the people who split apart the 2 Yang models. But volume has been low, and I'm kind of a little worried about energy in the working group. So Carlos and Benoit and I have met, and we kind of have a plan. We want to progress the two Yang models rather rapidly. The connection-less Yang model, in our opinion, isn't quite ready for last call yet. I'm sorry, not connection-less, connection-oriented. Isn't quite ready for last call yet, but it's pretty close. So we're thinking maybe, and also this is my personal opinion, you can throw fruit if you don't like it. We think that it's pretty close, and most of what it needs is to have stuff pruned out and more places to which technology-specific contributors can attach their stuff, more ways to augment it. So what we would like to do is sometime between this IETF and the next IETF, have a virtual interim in which we do a little discussion and a little online editing. Then, if it's okay with the authors, could you raise your hand? If it's okay with the authors, you'll spin one more version. We'll have a working group last call on it before the next IETF. And hopefully when we meet in Berlin, it'll be in last call. Sound reasonable, authors? Whoops. Okay. Now, that brings us to the connection-oriented applicability draft. Boy, whatever that meeting is, it's really popular. Oh, that's next door, I'm hearing. Okay. As for the connection-oriented applicability statement, there are probably some words that we can copy from there into the Yang model to explain where it's applicable. And maybe we don't need to progress the applicability statement, just bring its text into the Yang model. The connection-less Yang model is probably in less good shape. It's very new. Are the authors here? The same two authors. Okay, yeah. That one, if you could spin another version by the next IETF, that would be a good thing to do. Also, bring in text from the applicability statement so we have 2 documents to progress as opposed to 4. Does this sound like a reasonable plan to everybody? Anybody object? And the plan, again, is to publish those 2 Yang models rather quickly, because it's been, how long now? A year since we've been thinking about it? It's time.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, do you have anything to add, or should we?
Thank you, Ron. I actually have a couple of small things to add to go into a double-click level of detail to some of the things that Ron shared. When we are thinking about the Yang models themselves, Benoit reminded us to always go back and look at the charter and what the group was chartered to do. And, we wanted to highlight that particular section in which we talk about configuration, reporting, and presentation. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at in the models themselves is, make them as generic as possible, which means prune and make them, I don't want to say bare bones because that has a negative connotation, but as attachable, reusable as possible by way of being generic. Now, not so much that we lose any of these 3 things: configuration, reporting, and presentation.
Actually, is that it?
I have one more thing.
Okay, you first, please.
And the last thing that I want to remind us all is that we as a working group, what does success look for us as a working group? And when we step back, success means that our customers actually reuse the model, which is all the different protocol-specific OEMs actually have not only the possibility, but actually do the work on reusing the model and augmenting and attaching to the model itself. So one of the things that we've done is we created a wiki in which we are tracking all the different protocols, MPLS, LSP ping, BFD, MPLS TP. Yeah, that is, sorry about that. It's been going on and off.
Everybody was called. Oh, the whole room? I don't know. I was called.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I don't have power.
This is the powerless working group.
We lost complete power.
We're ops guys. We can fix this.
So while we try to figure out the technical logistics of the projector, we did want to remind ourselves that success is the other protocols for users. So we're going to be tracking that in the wiki. And, if we think about the work from the applicability statement that we're going to have to port into the Young models themselves, is going to be the goal, the rationale for that text is going to be to show how the model can actually be used. Thank you.
Benoit Claes. Okay, it's on. So while we're waiting, let me speak for a few minutes. So I like exactly what you said, that the success of this working group will be, it will be a success whenever the different OEM mechanisms that have a Yang model will be using LIME as a basis. So you could not show the wiki, but in there you've got all the different OEMs, but including also the one that we will be thinking about, like the one in segment routing, the one in beer that don't exist yet. Now, in your wiki, I would like to see maybe more things in there, because, okay, a yes, no on whether their Yang model is based on LIME, and a yes, no whether they use the latest version of LIME, because when I check the compilation of all these Yang models for the different OEM mechanisms, they're still referring to an old version of LIME. Remember, you changed, for example, it was called generic OEM. Now it's called connection-oriented. Most of these guys, they're still referring to the old draft. And the second thing I want to mention is that in the hackathon, with the tool that will, whenever you insert a Yang model, will give us the email address of all the different drafts that import, the email address of the author of the draft that contain a Yang model, which is dependent on LIME, for example. So as soon as we have a new version, you guys, we need to send the email. Please make sure that all the depending Yang models still work.
Thank you.
Let's see. Are we now too impaired to start our first presentation? Like, can people in the, let's see, can people in the remote queue hear us? I see 3 participants, but they're not responding. Okay, so in that case, let us begin. Oh, I guess we are too impaired. We don't have a slide projector. Can everyone in the room download the LIME connection-oriented OEM base Yang model?
There is WebEx. Yeah, there is WebEx. Oh. You do WebEx for this?
We don't have a WebEx.
Okay.
We have only Mythical. So let's give it 2 minutes, and
okay.
If not,
2-minute break. Time for coffee.
Tell us what we should do in Buenos Aires. Tell us what we should do in Buenos Aires in our spare time.
In this great city.
Yeah.
I think you should all walk and talk to people. There's a lot of places nearby, like the Pink House, which is where the president lives, and the May Square that has seen most of the history of this country. Ron had a great suggestion this morning, which is a place called La Boca.
My grandfather used to live there.
And that is a fabulous neighborhood. For people who are staying over the weekend, I really recommend a neighborhood called Recoleta, which has an open fair, an artisan fair, fairly local. And again, I'm going to be, reach out to me. I have already a template, Adrian, of suggestions and recommendations.
We were in La Boca on Sunday.
You liked it?
Even bought a T-shirt of La Boca football team. So. Yellow and blue.
Yeah.
Just send your list of recommendations to Lime mail list
There you go.
or attendee mail.
There you go. Well, I mean, this might actually take longer. So why don't we go into Plan B? Plan B being the slides are uploaded. So can we actually all download the connection-oriented slides, and we can go, by slide number. I actually wonder if joining Mitico.
Oh, yeah, we're all remote.
Exactly, we can all be remote in the room.
Can the remote participants see the slides? Is anybody answering in the Jabber room? Remote participants, can you see the slides?
Yes, yes, I'm seeing the applicability. So we have a situation where the participants are better able to participate.
Okay, this is actually comical. Why don't we all join Mitico or Michu or however it's pronounced? If you go to the IETF homepage, there'll be a way to join. And we will all be remote participants.
You know that I'm on record since 2011 on the ISG. Some ISG minutes actually predicting that in 10 years, our meetings will be fully virtual.
You were ahead of the time.
5 years ago.
The time has come.
The time's come. Okay, raise your hand when you've joined Mitico or Michu or however it's pronounced. Maybe it's Michu, kind of like a sneeze. Okay, we're in.
It's not clear what we're seeing. What's not clear is who's managing this.
Yeah, who's driving it? Probably the guy in the back of the room who's just left.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there is power.
You have the microphone. You have power.
Okay, we have power back. Yeah, it's warming up.
You have voice.
That's a good sign. Yeah, I see Carlos is now in Michu
It's in my own slide.
or Meet Echo. Okay. Would you like to come up and present?
And we are back on.
Yay. Yes. Stand in the pink box so it's easier for the people to hit you when they throw fruit.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael from Huawei, and today I want to introduce the LIME connection-oriented model update. Next slide. Okay. Firstly, I'm going to take a look at the LIME-based model's design goal. The LIME-based model is focused to find a common structure to the OEM technologies. So we defined as a configuration model to provide this common structure and these common configuration parameters. And we also define the RPC and the notification blocks to provide consistent representation and reporting. And when we define the model, we always consider one question: how to provide easy reusability and flexible extensibility. So based on this design goal, we develop the LIME-based young model and do several updates. Since the last IETF meeting in Yokohama, according to the working group's discussion, we have do a lot of update. And the most important update is we split this generic model into two models, one for connection arranged, not for one for connectless technologies. Meanwhile, we also do some update in the connection arranged update, arranged document to remove some connectless description. For example, in 01 version, there are a lot of sentences talk about the IP pin and the trace route. Obviously, they belong to the connectless technology. So in the 02 version, we remove them. And we also change the model name to from the IETF GOM to IETF CON because the later one can clearly indicate this model is for connection-oriented technology. In the model, we remove IPv4 and IPv6 identity because they are out of the connection-oriented scope. And we also do some change in the RPC output. In the 01 version, there are some statistic parameters such as mean delay and average delay and max delay. In the 02 version, we change it to a choice case node with default value empty. So the user can easily flexible insert this some parameters which they needed. Okay, we submitted this 02 version in last month and then received a lot of good comments. According to this discussion, we update our document and model. For example, in the 03 version, we remove some connectless remains such as some description in the technology identity and the subcommon technology identity. And we also remove the SMP pin identity because they are connectless technologies. Another change is we modify the intervals type to the decimal 64 because what the previous version the type is cannot satisfy the decimals. For example, 3.3 milliseconds. And another change is we change the interval to transmit interval because in some technology specific OEMs, for example, MPLS TP, there have two intervals. One is a transmit interval, another is a receive interval. And in our base model, this interval means transmit interval. So we do this change to more clear description. Next slide, please. Okay, this above all is the update of young model or connection young models update. And another important job I think is how to use the base young model, how to extend in this technology specific model. For example, the trail and MPLS TP. For trail, I think our basic model can well supported, and they already have two working group draft in trail working group, one for trail OEM and another one is trail performance measurement. And these two drafts are all based on our generic model. Another job is how to extend to the MPLS TP. I think our connection arranged OEM model can also well support it because MPLS TP OEM also adopt to the MEG and ME structure, and our connection arranged model can well describe it. When we want to extend it to the MPLS TP, we can set the MD name to MAC ID and MA's name to MD name to global ID, MA's name to MAC ID, and MEP's name to MEID. And we also aware there is already a young draft in MPL's working group talk about MPL's TPOM young model. So, and next step, we'd like to talk to the authors and collect more comments to make our basic model more generic and satisfy the MPL's TP's requirement. Okay, this is a connection-oriented models update. Any question?
Who has actually read the new version of this draft, which is only scoped to connection-oriented?
Okay.
Greg Mersk. Oh. I know the trick.
It's on.
Okay. Greg Mirsky, Ericsson. I think that my comment is not entirely on this model, but probably on both models, connection and connectionless. If we try to look at what is the common in OEM, and the goal is to use it to facilitate their multi-layer OEM so that their client layer can benefit from their information available from the server layer. It's two things. So the location of test points that define their path and operation and the state. So effectively, the client layer is interested for information from the server layer to help with the localization of the problem. And for that, you need to know their location in the network and the state. So if their server layer reports the error defect, then their client layer can really attribute this defect to their defect it will find later, because obviously the recommended is that certain correlation of their intervals between the layers, so that there will not be simultaneous errors on the different layers detected. So I think that we might try to do some abstraction from the specifics of intervals that being used to do detection or some other particulars, and look at what is the common for connection-oriented and connectionless. And that would be a location. Location could be expressed as for connection-oriented as a domain name, level, and ID, or it could be, as usually in IP and IP/MPLS, as IP address. Then operation would be, again, very generic. If we do a continuity check, this is a continuity check. How and what protocol instruments there or enables continuity check, whether it's CFM 1731 or BFD or something else, I think that this is technology specific. And then the state. The state would be up, down, admin down, RDI is seen, or something else. So I think that it may become very compact, but that would be information is really what would be necessary to communicate to their client layer OEM the state of the current server layer.
Greg, in the beginning of the document, there's a diagram that shows the hierarchy of objects in the Yang model. Could you tweak that diagram to capture what you just said?
Well, not right now.
Oh, I know, not right now.
Over
if
time.
you could do it in an email address, an email, and post it to the list.
Okay, I'll try it after the
I know
meeting.
I know that's a huge amount of work.
No,
but
no,
it could be largely productive.
Okay, I'll try to do it after the, well, we can do it in iterations, but I'll start it after the meeting.
I will bribe you with beer.
Okay? Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And before we move to the next presentation, anyone has not signed the blue sheet? Make sure you do. Thank you. You can say click and I will advance.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Qing Wu, and Deepak is not here, so I will present on behalf of Deepak and all the other authors. So if you follow the last IETF meeting, actually we discussed a lot about this data model, base model, and we agreed to split the base model into two jobs. So we split this connectionist from the base model. We actually have a lot of offline discussion with BFD guys and some other problem that we put them together to come up with this new version draft. This is first version. So next. Actually, this first before get started, actually we want to introduce this model design. Actually, we suppose we have Alice want to communicate with Bob, and in the underline we need to set up a test between test point A to test point B. The test point B is the destination test point, so we need to try to model how this test point is addressed, and what kind of OM tool can be used, can be applied on the test point, and how the test point is related to each other at different layers. But we don't cover how test point which domain all these test points belong to, and so we build actually is the OM topology, and this OM topology will build on top of the network topology. In this way, we can actually to see how the test point to relate to another test point, and in this using this figure, we using the RPC. Actually, the management system can use RPC to trigger the OM command on the network device, and they can trigger the test point to send the OM command, for example, ping or trace route, and get test results back. And these test results back will report back to the management system. Also, we can use notification to trigger the test point to report back the test results. And that's the basic model design. Next. So for connectionist OEM, actually, we will actually use the test point address list as a root node in the schema tree. Under the test point address list, we will define a list of the test point location, and then we under the test point test point location, we will define the test point address and the tools. So here there's several attributes we want to highlight. The test point will represent the test point address. The tools will indicate whether the OM tools can be supported on specific test point. And then we also define the OM layer. The OM layer actually can help us to know how test point is related to another test point at different layers. And by default, we'll set the OM layer as as a zero, but in some cases, we need to know how the client layer is related to the server layer. So we will actually set the OEM layer as maybe -1 and +1. And next. We also define the RPC, and the RPC will limit to the connect to check and pass verification. The continue check actually tell us will tell us whether the destination is reachable. Another is pass discovery. The pass discovery RPC will tell us how many nodes along the route to the destination test point. Next. Here is some snippet set of this schema tree. Actually, we want to highlight we define some IPv6 address and source destination address. This actually can be used by the BFD. We also define some interface and fact type. These can be used by the MPLS OEM. Next. Here we give the usage of the tools attribute. Actually, in the mailing list, we have some discussion about the tools and whether we need to enumerate all the tools. So we think it will be actually we give the tools container. These actually classify different tools into several groups, and we by the default, and we will only keep the tools empty. And but in some cases, if you support some technology-specific tools, we can set this attribute as true. And in the model extension, we can do the augmentation at the proper place if these tools can be set true in the base model. Next. This is another example to just explain the usage of the OEM layers. So the OEM layer, actually, if you configure the test point, and you can get some test results, and you can report these test results to the management system, and the management system will correlate these test results with test point in the base model. The next. Here we summarize some discussing on the mailing list. Actually, some of the changes we have already incorporated into the current version, but some of the changes we has agreed, but we haven't integrated into the current version. For example, for the version 1, actually we remove some parameter from the base model, because this is actually connection-oriented technology-related specification. So we remove such kind of parameter. We also add some terminology to the terminology section to make it more clear. And we also limited the connectionist OEM to the continue check and pass verification. And for some point we haven't incorporated into, for example, the dispersion model provided in the section 3 of the base model does not align with the model architecture in the YARN model code. So we actually has already prepared a new revision, but we face some problem to upload it, because there's some dependency problem. There's some submission tools problem, so we will fix this later. And we also haven't in the current model the object is not clear in the current document. We have some offline discussion with Raj Head, and we haven't get his feedback on this. We will keep on working on this. Another thing is about the IPv6 location and IPv4 location parameter. This there's some suggestion they hope this can be collapsed into one attribute, but we think it's not clear. Maybe it's better to separate into separate zone. So we look for some feedback from the BFD guys, and if you have any comments or suggestions on this, you please welcome. And some other points that need further discussion actually has already clarified in the previous slides about the OM layer usage and tools usage. And if you have any suggestions, comments, and you are welcome. Next. For the next step, we will fix all the open issue we has already discussed, and we'll prepare the new revision. And we also need hope solicit more feedback on this draft help to improve this connectionist model, because it's first version, and we still have a lot of space to improve. And if you have comments, suggestions, and please help us. Thank you.
Greg Mirsky, Ericsson. So even though just to get probably better understanding of your plan, so you know that the BFD Yang model already being adopted by BFD working group. So why not to just augment it? And there is a T1 Yang model in a IPPM working group, again just adopted by the working group. So would that be, if anything, that more specific than reference to existing model? Would that be duplication of effort?
You mean in this draft we?
Yes.
Okay. I think in current model we haven't referenced this existing work, right?
Because if I understand, if there are some particular elements of existing models that might need to be looked at and discussed, I think that's better just to go into this working group and work with those who actively participate in the Yang models, rather than create another version and then try to correlate them.
Are you talking about another draft called the BFD-LIME draft?
That is too, yes.
Yeah. This draft actually we think maybe this is a separate issue. It's a separate draft. We think if people think it is necessary, we can update this draft. We try to get in line with not only BFD but also LIME draft and also the PAN WAMP. And we idea actually in this, if we can have LIME BFD model, actually we will try to reuse grouping defined in the BFD and PAN, and but we will follow the connectionist OM model structure.
Okay. I think that it would be counterproductive to have anything which is a LIME BFD model different from the BFD model accepted by the working group. If model that accepted by the working group needs to do some changes to be usable or easy to use in the LIME, in the generic model, then let's discuss it in the BFD working group.
Yeah, so I want to make a couple of clarifications on the question. And you can actually forget about the projector because we finished with the slide. The fact that different working groups have working group adopted versions of specific documents, specific protocols, doesn't mean that those are carved on stone. At the same time, I do want to clarify that the work on protocol-specific models for BFD, MPLS-TP, MPLS-LSP ping, etc., OAMs need to happen in those working groups, right? So it does not happen in LIME. LIME is chartered to only work on a generic model, whereas the protocol-specific happen on the different working groups. So with that, this is a plea to coordination among authors, right? Yes. And if in the specific case of BFD, there's two potentially competing drafts, let's get in a room and sort it out.
Exactly. That is my point.
Adrian, you have something from the Jabber room?
Yeah, I have two things. One is that MeetEcho folk are telling us that you've got somebody in your virtual queue, which you possibly can't see because the virtual queue is not projected.
I can see it.
You can unmute them using the big red button.
Okay, here we go. Go ahead.
Hi. So as per Greg's comment, we are working with BFD authors, BFD young authors, the draft which is adopted by the working group to see how means LIME can be applicable to them. And yeah, so this is ongoing process, and Rishad is one of the authors from the BFD Young. So we are working with him and Mahesh, and then we'll work with the bigger team of authors.
Okay, thank you. And I'll insert myself in the line after you.
Sure. Sharon, the Valley Broadcom. So, sorry, I just want to ask you, have you considered, for your testing points to be two types, what we call up and down type, like up map and down map, and also the intermediate measure points? Have you considered that or not?
In the current connectionist model, we haven't considered the up-down attribute, but if you think they're useful, and we can talk about that, whether we need to add this.
And how about the intermediate test points? Have you considered that or not? Like a MIP, measurement intermediate point, not the end point of the measurement, in the middle.
Yeah.
Like for example, for trace route, you need to measure middle points, right?
I think we haven't considered the intermediate MIP. Yeah.
Okay, Ron Bonica is individual contributor. Greg Mirsky brings up an interesting issue about the actual role of this LIME model. One role is to be a place where the developers of test mechanisms can hang their Yang models. BFD can put theirs, and Trill can put theirs, and Technology X puts theirs. At no point do we want to be defining something that is also in theirs. So, and I think that's the point that Greg was making. Greg, if you're following, raise your hand if that's the point you were at. Now there's another side to this coin. Let's say Technology X and Technology Y have exactly the same attribute. However, Technology X calls it phi and Technology Y calls it foo. Is it the goal of this Yang model to abstract those two attributes, put them upstairs someplace common? This is a difficult decision to make because we may not really understand best if the two attributes are the same. And what's more, by giving them a common name, we may not be doing anybody any good because the name may be well known within that technology. So, I'd ask a few people to chime in. Which way is the right way to go with this?
Benoit Claes. So I will answer the first part of your comment, which is this is the reason why the wiki that you mentioned is key. And ideally, we wanted to reach out to the TWAMP Yang model people before it was even accepted as a working document. This should have been the proactive thing that this group had to do. So we want to make sure we do this for next ones. I'm happy to see the BFD collaboration, right? But there are more than the BFD.
I have a Jabber comment from Deepak Kumar. He says, traceroute can work with connectionless model without configuring MEP or MIP. They are all abstracted as test points.
Thank you, Adrian. Carlos Piñataro, Cisco. You listed a couple of RPCs that you included in this draft. So a couple of questions as individual contributor. Have you considered performance management RPCs?
In the current model, we haven't considered. It's a separate draft. I think we have some discussion in previous meeting. We haven't get any agreement whether they should be integrated or separated. So if people have interest, then we can consider to add them in this model. Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting question for the working group.
Yeah.
Whether because so far you have CC and path verification.
Yeah.
Right. So a second question that I had as I was reading the draft a couple of weeks ago, are you scoping the connectionless model to be for active OEM only, or how you actually include passive OEM and passive telemetry, for example?
Yeah, I think we in the previous discussion we think we can support both, active or proactive. We call the on-demand or proactive. We use different terms, and we haven't get any feedback whether we should choose only one or we'll support both. We like to hear what the working group think about this.
I think you're addressing different distinctions. His is between active and passive.
Yeah.
Yours is on demand and proactive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's different term. I think.
Yeah, but they mean different things. They're orthogonal terms.
Okay, so maybe we can take it offline. I need to better understand what.
So I'm gonna take that question to the list.
Actually, we have a separate job to talk about performance management. I'm aware there's some other problem to propose some performance management. Maybe if they have interest, then we can work together to say whether this performance management can be proceeded in this model.
And just to be clear, there are three distinctive different things on the table, right? One is the performance management question.
Yeah.
The other one is active versus passive.
Yeah.
The third one is on demand versus continuous, right? And let's make sure we don't mix them up.
Okay.
Deepak is cleverly multi-threading. He's in the Jabber room, but he's also in Meetecho. So I suggest you take him there and let him talk.
So actually means for passive OEM, I started looking into it. The thing is, it will be a bigger question to the working group if they are interested that anything common of passive OEM should come into Lime-based draft. We can certainly propose it and add those operational data to the operational data or near table in the Lime-based document. For performance, looks like there is some commonality. So if there is some common table is there, we can actually put it here. Now to define RPC for performance, should we do it in this draft or in another draft which is augmenting the same draft? Otherwise, this draft will become a very big model.
Yes, Greg Mirsky, Ericsson. Okay, in regard to the passive, I think that if we will try to explore this idea of that we're interested in location, method, and state, then active and passive might be just different methods of doing whether it's a fault management or performance measurement. In terms of their performance measurement in stats, then it probably will be coming from respective models specific, whether it's a TWAMP or some other performance measurement of, for example, 6374, MPLS loss and delay measurement, or one of the example, passive measurements in marking method. So I think that definitely, again, it probably will be some area for cooperation between specific Yang models on the protocol and the LIME.
Actually, for performance measurement, actually, I have some question. If we want to cover performance measurement, should we need to split into connection oriented and connection list? I'm not sure about this.
That's a great discussion to be had on the list.
Okay.
And as chair, I want to make a couple of comments. Jean, you had a slide, this one right here, the discussion recap, in which you're listing a number of open items. I want to ask you to actually put this in an email and shoot them to the list so that we can actually discuss some of the questions that you have right there.
I think we have already raised the discussion. Actually, we already in this slides try to clarify all of this issue, and I think nobody can raise such kind of issue. We follow up, and I think we can keep on discussing this, or we can start a new thread.
I see that you have a number of items that says need further discuss.
Yeah, this has already discussed because this slide is written by my colleague, so I maybe there's some miswording.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, I also wanted to, keep us all honest that this is still an individual submission, an individual draft. So I think it's probably a good time right now to, poll the room and the working group around, how do we want to proceed as a group with this document. So, first I want to ask how many people have read this document. Who believes that this is a problem state for the working group to solve? Who would support adoption of a solution that addresses the problem of a Yang model for connectionless OEM? So a decent number of people raise their hands for the minute. And the last question that I have, I don't know, Ron, if you have any additional question, but the last question that I have is who think this document is a good starting point for actually that, for that effort? Who would support adoption of this specific document? Less number of people. Okay, I think the mic agrees. There is no alternative. There is no other document that I'm aware of.
Adrian Farrell, I think your question is probably biased by the number of hands of people who'd actually read the document, since there were only, I think, 4 hands asking who thinks it's ready to, a candidate for adoption. You're really only polling those 4 people.
I'm not sure that there were 4. Could you raise your hand again if you've read the document? Yeah, a few more than 4.
And Adrian, I just wanted to get a sense, and of course this is going to go to the list, but I wanted to get a sense since we're all here. So,
if it helps, I read the document twice.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chin.
Thank you.
And this is the final presentation that we have in Lime. I wanna go over really briefly a recap. I don't know if you want to do it or I can do it of next steps on a couple of things that we agreed. We agreed on progressing connectionless and connection-oriented separately as 2 independent documents. We agreed on not progressing applicability documents as separate documents and instead bringing those as different sections of the models themselves. Those are two of the key decisions. The third one is around polling the group on the list about a potential adoption for this connectionless. And that's my notes. Anything I'm missing, anything I'm forgetting?
Reach out.
Yes, reach out to other working groups. Also, does anybody think we could benefit by a group editing session of the connectionless document in a virtual interim? So hopefully we could get another version before this and maybe even have a last call before the next IETF. Well, let me ask the question. Who would be in favor of a group editing session in a virtual interim for the connectionless model? Microphone.
Mike?
So I want to understand, edit connectionless, but connectionless is a...
No. Sorry, I was stuttering. Connection oriented.
Okay.
Did I say connectionless? Sorry, I say everything backwards because I'm in the other hemisphere now. It's like, but who would be in favor of a virtual interim, a little group editing on the connection oriented model, and hopefully a last call before the next IETF? Hence, if you're interested in a virtual interim, and a virtual interim there will be. Be prepared for like a group editing session. And that's all I have. Anything else?
That's all. That's all for us. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.
Walk around the city.
I paid for 2.5 hours.
Perfect. I think we have.
We could all discuss the last Argentine election.
I'm not qualified for that one.
I have qualifications. I used to be a black belt in karate.
There you go.
And that's what it goes to.
That's what you mean. That's exactly what you mean.
Minutes was.
Beautiful. Can you please send them?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jabber Scribes. Adrian, were you the Jabber Scribe? Or yeah, I guess you were because you came to the microphone. I owe you like another $10 for that. Yeah. I'll buy another. Can we plug your book?
Why not?
Okay, since Adrian was the Jabber Scribe, check out his book, Tales from the Wood.
You want to read it for an hour? Your favorite?
Oh, it's really good. It's children's stories from very strange perspectives. Well, I'm going to find a place to do some work because I have to get my slides ready for tomorrow
There you go.
and the day after, and
Exactly. No, same here. Exactly the same.
post a draft. And, yeah, I'm in trouble.
Well, we want to get back home without the long queue, the long list of to do things from.
Well, for me, it's the stuff I have to do with my presentations.
Even better.
Yeah. Thanks. Take care. I'll talk to you later.
Likewise.
Tales from the Wood is available on Amazon. Available here now. $10 each, $2.20. See what that email. I think that would agree. That would be 31. Keep on.